Hey everyone, welcome to the Menschwarmers on this beautiful 13th day of Adar, as a matter of fact. Happy Purim.
Purim Sameach, everyone. You may notice that I'm not Jamie, if you're a regular listener.
That's right. Yeah. It's a special episode this week. Jamie is off celebrating. He was part of a really wonderful, disgusting tradition, which is the birth of a child. And he's being replaced by a guest host tonight, our regular producer, Alex Rose.
Hey, how's it going? You may know me from the Canadian Jewish Schmooze and other podcasts.
Our sister podcast, that's right. We've got a really friendly network here, somewhat of a minion of podcasts coming soon. And Alex is part of our family, and we're happy to have him. How's your week going? How's your Purim thus far?
My Purim's good. I didn't do anything especially different for it today. Had some Humintushin at home. I guess that counts.
That counts. That's a Purim thing.
I went to a spiel on Saturday night. But I don't know. It's not the same as when you're in university or school and everyone's dressing up and it's like a whole big to do.
Did you have any wild Purim parties in, where'd you go, Dal?
Yeah.
At Dal?
We had an AE Pie Purim party one year. That was pretty fun.
You were an AE Pie?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we started a chapter out there. I think it was like the third attempt.
The
first two had failed.
Yep.
This one still exists. We'll see. Shout out to the brothers out there. I've spoken to them.
Do they listen to the podcast? They will now.
Yeah.
There you go. They have a shout out. Oh, I went to McGill and it was usually the craziest party of the year was Purim. I may have told this story before, but one year we brought my Catholic roommate to Purim. His name was Christopher. He dressed up as a leprechaun, full-on thing. And
that tracks.
Introduced himself as Sam the whole night. Oh, hey, I'm Sam. Just because saying, hey, I'm Chris at the Purim party would have gotten a lot of side looks. But Chabad Purim at McGill, we had a candy room, and there was a good Megillah reading going on with a lot of banging and a lot of Haman yelling, and all the booze you could drink.
Sounds fun.
And a Led Zeppelin cover band of dudes with payas and full Hasidic looks.
It's amazing.
With the dance floor separated by men and women, of course.
Oh, the mechitza on the dance floor?
On the dance floor. It was fantastic.
Hillel was bigger in Halifax than Chabad was. But it probably still wasn't as big as either were out in Montreal because there just aren't so many Jews.
Yeah, Chabad was a big deal, at least for the Jews. The Chabad people would sort of really come at you on campus. I don't know if that happened to you, but I'm sure it's happened downtown Toronto. Excuse me, are you Jewish? They sort of take a look at you and do it.
It's happened, yeah. It's happened on Eglinton. I don't know if that counts as downtown.
Yeah, it counts. I've had it happen in front of the JCC on Bloor before.
Yeah.
It's sort of a Jewish community thing. Somebody comes up. I really just want to say no, see if they're confused or pretend to be Italian or South American or something.
They know.
They know, exactly. No, and frankly, I don't care for the people, I could say. But if they knew who I am, that wouldn't work. Anyway, so happy Purim, everyone. Eat some Hamantashen and enjoy. We have a really exciting show tonight. Today I spoke, and Alex and I spoke to former Survivor winner Ethan Zohn. Do you think Survivor is a sport, Alex?
I mean, it's certainly physical enough to be a sport and competitive to be enough to be a sport, and yet I'm not sure.
I think it's competition, the same way that like poker is competition or auto racing is competition.
So what
they're
keeps
both
Survivor from
demanding.
being a sport, though?
I think it's sort of the contrivance of it being prepared. I mean, I also believe pro wrestling
Would you say it's an athletic endeavor?
I would say it's an athletic endeavor, and it's competition. It is an athletic. There are many athletic competitions involved. Do
you think the heptathlon is a sport or a competition composed of multiple sports?
Yeah, that's a good question. Do we have any Jewish heptathletes we can interview for their opinion on this?
We'll have to look out for them.
Is it, or there's the heptathlon, it was supposed to be one sport, but by a great miracle, it lasted 7.
It should be the official sport of Hanukkah.
Yeah, the officials, we could call it the octathlon and add in kvetching or something as the 8th. But so let's say for the sake of this conversation, for the sake of the day, and for the sake of our podcast that yes, Survivor is a sport.
Soccer is also definitely a sport.
Soccer is also definitely a sport.
Played.
But that's somewhat secondary to what he's noted for.
That's true.
We have great Jewish athlete and great Jewish competitor, Ethan Zohn, former Survivor winner. He'll come on later and talk about what he did with his money, what he's doing now, sort of with his life, his experiences being a survivor and being a Jewish survivor, as well his
I'm laughing at the connotation there because, I mean,
There's
Jewish survivor.
The Jewish survivor. It's a loaded term,
Yeah.
and we'll get into that in the
Yeah.
conversation. The loaded term, as well as sort of his own take on celebrating Purim, which is pretty out there. Specifically, we sort of tap into something that I'm not going to ruin it for you, but talk to. But before we get to that Ethan Zohn interview, a couple of other interesting things happening in Jewish sports this week. Alex, why don't you tell us a little bit about the miracle that is happening at Yeshiva University?
Well, if playing to sold out crowds is a miracle, I guess every crowd is sold out when no one's there because Yeshiva University has made the what tournament is this?
It's the D3 tournament.
Yeah.
So the March Madness for D3.
Yeah. Yeah, so Yeshiva University
a little bit of intensity.
A little Meshuggah.
Yeah, exactly. March a little Meshuggah. That's it.
So
March Broigus. Just call it that.
So they qualified, and I don't know, have they qualified before? Do you know?
No, it's the first time.
Okay.
And they won their league.
Yeah. And
the first tournament game ever, and they won.
Yeah.
And then...
I think you should take it from
you
here.
Sure?
Yeah.
Okay, and then, they won their first game, and they then... sort of immediately before we reported this on our Twitter, but immediately before their game, they were kicked out of their hotel as two members of Yeshiva University community, neither of whom are on the basketball team, tested positive for the coronavirus. But we did learn it was a Jewish-owned hotel, so it was probably not an act of intentional sabotage for someone who was very jealous of the Yeshiva University team.
Yeah, or anti-Semitism, as a few people may have implied on Twitter.
Exactly. But we don't believe it was such. But shortly thereafter, they won their first game. They relocated to another hotel. And lo and behold, they won yet another game. And now they've won two. And they're heading to their third game. Hopefully they won't have lost by the time this airs. Or hopefully they will keep winning. And go Yeshiva. We're really enjoying them. It's a fully Jewish university, a fully Jewish basketball team with a Jewish coach, Jewish players. And we're pretty hyped about that here on the Menschwarmers. They're the Cinderella story. Or the Wise Men of Chelm story. I don't know if there's a Jewish Cinderella adjacent
I'm sure
story.
There's some folk tale if we think long enough.
So there is, when I Googled Jewish Cinderella, I find a Cinderella story translated from Hebrew called Reisel's Riddle.
Yep.
Which sounds about right.
Yeah.
As well as a different one, the Jewish Cinderella. The Cinderella tale is called Meat, Love, Salt, which seems to have something to do with maybe a woman being transformed into a steak or a slipper made of salt that fits perfectly on her body.
With a Jewish twist to it.
Exactly. That feels sort of pretty much that's our literary corner for the day. Yeah. Talking about the way meat loves salt in our. That's what we feel Yeshiva is really bringing to the D3 basketball community. Another news from the story of basketball after the firing of the Cleveland Cavaliers coach, whose name I don't really...
John Beilein, but I might be saying that wrong.
Beilein,
something
Beilein,
like
John Bialik. With the firing of John Bialik.
John Beilein,
that's right.
I think that's the one.
Lindsay Gottlieb,
yes,
the Jewish former University of Berkeley women's head coach, and she's now a first-row assistant coach in the NHL. So NBA, sorry, in the NBA. She's now, I guess, in a race with Brittany Donaldson and Becky Hammond, two other frontline assistant coaches in the NBA, to be that first...
For the Raptors and Spurs, right?
For the Raptors and Spurs, to be that first head coach. So good luck, Lindsay.
Yeah, and...
Mazel tov on the promotion.
With Kobe Altman and Dan Gilbert, that's the front office trifecta. Well, I don't know if a coach is a front office, but all they need is a player to win
they fit the
Jewish sports team bingo.
So
yeah,
we did look it up. I don't think they necessarily have a specific Jewish player. However, there is one player on the Cleveland Cavaliers on their roster. He is not Jewish. I'm not going to say...
Wait, what's his first name?
He's not Jewish, but Sir Dominic Pointer.
So you're telling me Sir Dominic, a guy...
Sir Dominic Pointer is not Jewish. However, he is from Detroit. He's 27 years old. And he did play for both Hapoel Eilat and Iryoni Kiryat Ata in Israel. So he's sort of he's Jewish adjacent.
Like Anthony Parker.
Like Anthony Parker is Jewish. We'll be following...
Is he number 18 also?
He wears 15, unfortunately.
Oh.
I know. But we will be following the Big East co-defensive player of the year.
And the most Jewish team in the NBA.
And the most Jewish team in the NBA, exactly. The Cleveland Cavaliers.
Owner, GM, and coach.
Hopefully they can win their 15th game sometime soon.
Yeah.
And bring... Maybe they settle with 18 wins. You could be the worst team in the league, but if you settle on 18 wins, I think that's good luck for a Jewish team.
Yeah.
That's the
They'll win another draft lottery.
That's right. That would be
good
good luck. As I write this, they're losing to another bad team. But if they could settle right on 18 wins, that would be pretty terrific.
Yeah,
so,
really, something to play for this year.
Exactly. We've talked about Yeshiva. We've talked about Lindsay. One other piece of news. Fascinating story out of The Guardian this week. Hungarian Olympic gold medalist from 1952. Eva, her name I believe is Eva Zekey, spelled Szekely, but I believe it's pronounced Zekey, who pretended she was dead to avoid a Nazi firing squad on the Danube.
Oh my God.
Survived and then went to the 1952 Olympics and won a gold medal. And she died this week at the age of 93.
Wow. That's quite the story. That's not what I was expecting.
No, I was happy you didn't know this. She had 6 world records, 44 national Hungarian titles.
Oh my God.
And
what a hero.
And and she lasted a very long time with a true hero, Holocaust survivor, and is now hopefully being well remembered in both England, where they wrote about her, and in her home country of Hungary, where I believe she lived for the rest of her life.
Have you ever been to Budapest?
I've never.
They have a memorial there called Shoes on the Danube, actually, where I don't know if she's from there and that's the shooting she avoided, but right on the banks of the river where they took some Jewish people to be shot, I guess it's a bronze monument of just the shoes that are there that they, where they were taken off.
Oh, that's
and I guess
that must be on the side of the Danube. She must have been involved in there. She also had a daughter who was also an Olympic medalist, which is very, very exciting.
For Hungary also?
For Hungary also, many years later. And her daughter won at the 1972 Olympics, which is actually, obviously the time of the Black September massacre, where she was very close with the Israeli team at the time. But she was very open and public about her Jewishness at allegedly a time where very few Hungarians were post-Holocaust, where there was still a lot of anti-Semitism, as well a lot of sort of issues and racism in the community. But she believed that it was proud to be Jewish, and she was really wanted to be defy stereotypes. So both her and her daughter lived with that ethos, and she will be remembered fondly by not just the Menschwarmers, but obviously Jewish athletes all over the world.
Yeah. It's quite a story. I think we also want to talk about the upcoming baseball and soccer seasons. Is that right? Yeah. So there's a couple of, obviously we want to let you guys know we're paying attention to Rowdy Tellez of the Blue Jays, Alex Bregman, even though he's in a bit of a shonda. We're Colorado, that's in baseball. Jock Peterson, not traded recently, but obviously somebody we'll be watching out for on LA. As well, a couple of players in the MLS. Obviously, our dreadlocked hero, Kyle Beckerman. There's Zach McMath, the goalkeeper for Salt Lake City. And if you know of any other Jewish players in the MLS or in the European leagues coming up now, please let us know, and we'll dig deeper into it. Yeah, any fun stories? We're always looking for interesting Jewish stories of athletes that we haven't discussed on the podcast before. So with that said, an interesting Jewish athlete we haven't discussed before, please, after this quick break, enjoy our time with Survivor, I guess, as he calls it, the Jewish guy from Survivor, Ethan Zohn.
Oh, hey, thanks for coming on our show.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No worries. I don't know how much Alex has let you in. He produces the show for us. We're the Menschwarmers, talking about any sort of thing to do with Jews and sports. And as far as I'm concerned, Survivor is a sport. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I agree. It's the ultimate sporting event of all time.
Absolutely. And happy Purim, by the way.
Thank you. Exactly. Happy Purim. Did you guys celebrate?
So we're in Toronto. A number of Purim celebrations around the city have been canceled.
Right.
Due to the, pandemic and whatnot. But when I was in college, the craziest party of the year, no matter what year it was always Purim. Like you'd go to Chabad or Hillel or something, and there would be rabbi passed out on the floor and crazy costumes and stuff like that. Did you do anything?
Yeah. No. My wife and I are, we, not that this has anything to do with anything, but we go to Burning Man. So we kind of get our dressing up in costumes every year out of our system. So
that's your
really
Purim.
do it so much on, that's my Purim, yes.
I think there's a rich vein of comedy there. The Burning Man is the Purim for a certain set.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, welcome. Why don't we start? Let's introduce yourself to our listeners. Who you are, why you're notable, and that you are Jewish. So please introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Ethan Zohn. I'm the Jewish winner of Survivor Africa, and I'm also a former professional soccer player, two-time cancer survivor, and I do a lot of work in philanthropy.
That's amazing. I'd love to hear more about all of that, especially, I know your philanthropy involves a lot dealing with the game of soccer and sort of spreading that to a lot of places in the world, and I'd love to hear more about that. But first, are you the only Jewish Survivor winner?
I was the only Jewish Survivor winner until a few years ago when a guy by the name of Adam Klein ended up winning. Adam Klein, a Jew, a fellow tribe mate, we are part of a tribe that doesn't go back just like 40 TV seasons, goes back 5,700 years. So I felt okay with him winning, but definitely it was a blow to my ego, having been dethroned from the only Jewish Survivor winner.
I think, one day you get all of the Jewish contestants in the Levi tribe on some island somewhere. Survivor.
I actually had to change my last name. My last name, like my whole life, my name has been Ethan Zohn. Like growing up, that's what it's like. But after I won Survivor and hanging out in all these Jewish communities that I do work with, I had to officially change my last name. So my first name is still Ethan, but my last name is the Jewish guy from Survivor, and that's just like all one word.
Oh, that's hysterical. I bet that could be the middle name in brackets, sort of what you've been
right, exactly.
Since Oh, that's great. So are you, is your family Jewish? Are you still practicing?
Yeah, so I was born into a conservative Jewish family. I had a pretty, fun community growing up. I was heavily involved with, Hebrew school, had my bar mitzvah. I played, on all the little Jewish sports leagues. I played in the Maccabi games as a youth. And so, being Jewish has always been a huge part of my life. In high school, I won the B'nai B'rith Award a few years in a row. And so, being a Jewish athlete has been a huge part of my, my upbringing.
That's amazing. Love to hear more about the Maccabi games. What was that like?
Sure. So I played in Detroit when I was in high school. And then in college, I tried out for, the 93 team, didn't make it. Then I tried out against the 97 team and made it and went over to Israel to play in the Maccabi games. And that was the year that the bridge collapsed. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. This is 1997, and we were all lining up to go into Ramat Gan Stadium, and like the bridge that they built collapsed, and a few members from the Australian delegation ended up falling down and passing away. So it put a really interesting spin, on the games that year. But for me, this was really my first trip to Israel, and my, interacting with other athletes that were Jewish was just an incredible moment for me. I hung out with the cricket team from India. So we're talking Indian, so cool. Jewish athletes, South African Jews that I never met before, British Jews. We got some Ethiopian Jews there. So for me to all of a sudden, leave the United States and my little sheltered community and just my eyes were opened up to a whole new world of Jewish people and athletics. And that was just a huge instant connection for me. And it just made sense.
There's a really interesting history to the Maccabi games. We actually covered it on an earlier episode, maybe 6 months ago. But one of the reasons they were invented was in the time of British Palestine, they were a way to sort of spirit Jewish people into the country that wouldn't have otherwise be let in unless they got this special visa to participate, and then they would just stay.
Wow. Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, and I actually did try to stay. I stayed after to try to play, tried to play professional in Israel. Didn't work out for me, but yeah, that was definitely part of my trajectory. And then I made the 2001 team, but it was actually canceled because of some danger over there at that time. And since then, I ended up coaching the open team in the 2004 Pan American Maccabia Games, and I'm now just recently made the over 45 U.S. men's national soccer team, and we're really getting ready to go to Israel in 2021 again. So dusted up.
Oh wow! Congratulations on that.
Oh my God! Yeah, I don't know if you should congratulate me on that. It's probably a bad decision. As a goalkeeper, I'm not supposed to be diving around at age 46 years old. I'll tell you that. I can dive, but I can't really get back up. That's the issue.
That's usually the problem. And I feel like, I'm not quite 46, but I'm about 30, and I find things just sort of ache that didn't ache before. And you think about, when you're a kid or your parents just sort of complaining all the time, that's very much how I feel. So I can imagine what it'd be like to do a lot of diving.
Oh, it's the worst. Yeah, so we had a tournament a couple weeks ago that we played in Florida. It was pretty fun, though. But it's fun. It's for me. It's about the community. It's about the camaraderie. It's about hanging out with a bunch of my Jewish buddies and just kind of being together. It's rare at this age I'm able to play in a team sport with. We really do want to win. We're all training. We're getting fit. We have a coach. We have a strength and conditioning coach. So we're taking it seriously. So it's been nice to be in this team environment after so many years.
Oh, that's very cool. It's something you will miss forever, right? And it's something very unique, I think, to our community is that Jews can come together and just sort of talk about being Jewish, regardless of the context.
I've got a question, actually. Ethan, you're joking about how it's hard to get back up, but obviously there's just the log challenge on the Edge in the recent Survivor episode. It seems like you were getting back up a lot there. So I don't know, for our listeners who don't know the show, are you able to explain what the challenge was and what you went through in that experience?
Sure. Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about Survivor. People are asking about that, and I just so basically it's Survivor season 40. It's titled Winners at War, for everyone who's listening who isn't a fan of the show or doesn't know much about it. Basically, they brought back 20 of the most popular Survivor winners of all time to compete again for $2 million rather than $1 million. And the format of the show this year is when you're voted off, you don't actually go home. You go to this place called the Edge of Extinction, which is basically like purgatory. It's like life between it's in the game. It's between life and death, and there's different ways you can try to win these fire tokens or win different ways to get back into the real game. So there's this epic, brutal log challenge where we basically had to walk up and down a hill 20 times. And it may sound a little bit, not so hard, but when you're not eating and not sleeping and the hill is straight up and you got to do it 20 times. Let me put it this way. They gave us a clue at around 9 a.m. and they said, you have until sundown to finish. That's how hard it was. So I went up and down about 16 times, and then my body just gave out, and I collapsed and fainted, and they had to call in medical. But the moral of the story is I got up, and with the help of the other 3 people that were on the Edge of Extinction with me, they helped me up that last leg of the mountain, and it was this wonderful, epic moment of friendship and perseverance, in the middle of this cutthroat game of Survivor.
That's and do you think that's sort of what the best moments of the show are? I know it's a leading question.
I think any moment that I'm in are the best moments. Well, it wasn't my most proud moment on the show. Obviously I did everything in my power to get ready to go compete in the show Survivor. However, I was having a bad day and I went out too fast and my body just couldn't handle it. But I think the show is interesting in the sense that it's a game that touches on every part of you as a human being, like mental, physical, social, spiritual, environmental, and like financial. I mean, you're playing for $2 million here. So as an athlete or going into a game like this, you know, there are so many different aspects that you can train for, you can prepare for. But once you get out there, it's just, it's completely, you know, it changes, I guess you can say. And the beauty of the game is you can play 100 different ways and you can win 100 different ways. You know, you can be a jock, you can be, you know, a business person, you can be a jerk, a nice guy. So many different ways to play the game, and that's what makes it so incredible.
That's very cool. Do you find it? I mean, you've done a lot of physical challenges. I've read you've run marathons. You've obviously played really high levels of professional sports. You continue to. Is Survivor physically harder than that?
Yeah, I think it's just different. You know, it's incredibly intense over a long period of time. You're completely stripped from everything you feel comfortable with: water, food, shelter, friends, family, Wi-Fi, ATMs, you know, my rabbi, congregation, all that stuff, my wife, cats, everything. You're put out there and basically you're stripped down to nothing. And then you have to perform at your highest level and be able to deal with like all the complexities of the game. And so there's not one part of it that's harder than the other. You know, some people might be good at mind games and like manipulation and social side of things. Another person might be good at the physical side and challenges. The next person could be best at surviving and lighting fires and catching fish. So there's different ways you can excel within the game. And it's just the person who does the best job at all of them, or eliminating the people that, you know, are better than them early on, right? So if you're weak at certain things and you see some dominant challenge guy, you got to get rid of him, right? Or you got to align with him so he can help you along the way. So it's a really fun game. As coming in from an athletic, you know, that we're talking about Menschwarmers here, like coming in from an athletic, sporty side of it, you know, I took the approach of, you know, I feel more comfortable as an assistant coach out there. You know, I'm not necessarily the head coach type of guy. I don't like to stand up and bark orders and tell people what to do and, you know, create the game plans and all that stuff. But I'm good as the guy behind the guy. And what ends up happening is the head coach, he would complain to me about all the players would complain to me about the head coach, and I would just be able to filter that information, spit it out how I wanted it to, and be able to kind of use that to my advantage to get ahead in the game. And so that's kind of was my strategy going into it.
That's. Did you ever watch The Sopranos?
Yes.
That sounds a lot like Hesh, the Jewish character.
Yeah. Hey, maybe it just runs in us. I mean, hey, we are survivors, right? I'm good at suffering. I'm Jewish. It's in my blood, my DNA. That's why I did so well out there on Survivor.
I wrote this down a couple of weeks ago, and I really wanted to ask, do you remember the episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry goes to a dinner and he's told the survivor is going to be there and he's all somber, and then he shows up and it's Colby?
Of course. Of course. I even have some backstory on that if you want the real backstory.
Please. I'd love to.
So
it's a classic moment.
Exactly. I, along with Colby, this guy named Lex, and this guy named Brian Heidick, we are all asked to go audition for that part. So I got to go into a room and shoot the shit with Larry David and improv for this part.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was literally one of the highlights of my, you know, Survivor kind of whatever you want to call it after you win Survivor. And so I got in there and I was shooting the shit with Larry David, and all they did was give you a little strip of paper and it told you the theme. It's like, you are a television show survivor and you are at a dinner, exactly that, at a dinner with a bunch of Jewish Holocaust survivors. And then what ended up happening, I obviously didn't get the part because Colby is like, you know, Mr. USA, vanilla, you know, he is the perfect, you know, cowboy-looking guy to make this type of comedic play. I think I was too close to the cause. I couldn't have a Jewish survivor kind of comparing my time on Survivor to the Holocaust. It didn't really go over so well. I think it was too close. But for Colby to do it, it ended up being a funny bit, I think.
Well, and he's very obviously not Jewish, I think, which makes it even funnier.
Very obviously not Jewish, yes. Sorry.
Oh,
I was very obviously Jewish.
It's a great bit, and that's an awesome story. Thank you for sharing it with us. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but please tell me about your charity work.
Sure. So, I'm heavily involved with an organization called Grassroots Soccer. That's actually what I used the $1 million for. I used it to co-found this charity called Grassroots Soccer, and I did that because before Survivor, I lived and played professional soccer in Zimbabwe. And while I was in Zimbabwe, kind of like witnessed firsthand what was happening with HIV and AIDS and how it was just destroying this community that I was now a part of. And I had a few friends that got on the team. The starting goalkeeper got sick with HIV, and he was like kicked off the team and ended up living a horrible end to his life. And so once I got off the show and had a little bit of money, I got a little bit of fame, met up with some soccer buddies of mine, and we started this organization called Grassroots Soccer. And basically we use the sport of soccer to help change the behaviors of young boys and girls to make smarter choices in life. And, we just started in Zimbabwe in 2003 with about, 7, 8 schools. And now we're in 50 countries, and we graduated 2.3 million kids from the program.
Oh, that's amazing. It's very Mensch.
Yeah.
Putting the Mensch in Menschwarmers.
Very Mensch. Very Mensch. Actually, a funny story about when I first arrived in Zimbabwe. Like, one, my wonderful, overbearing Jewish mother definitely didn't want me to go to Africa and Zimbabwe to play soccer. She's like, "Are there any Jewish people there?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I have no idea what even is going on over there."
There's four. There's 4 of them.
There is 281 of them, and I was the 281st one. Yes. So I arrived in Zimbabwe, in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe, second largest city in Zimbabwe. Never in a million years did I think there would even be there were white people there. I didn't think it'd be Jewish people there. So I show up, and it's an Orthodox community. There's one shul there, and the men are separate from the women. And so I show up, and it's great because it's instant community. It's instant comfort and familiarity. And here I am in a foreign land trying to play a professional sport, and I just had the pleasure of being instantly connected to the entire Jewish community there. There's 281 Jews there, 280 and then 281 when I arrived. And the funny thing is, I would go to shul on Friday night, and I would go on Saturday every now and then. But there weren't that many, I guess, young Jewish people there. So when I showed up, I'm not joking here, literally after Shabbat services, parents would be lining up their daughters for me, to meet me. I was their ticket out of Zimbabwe, and it was the best moment of my life because I'd be able to oh, you're nice to know. Meet my daughter, my daughter. Because you're just American import coming to Africa to play soccer, and they're gonna whisk their daughter away and become Jewish. I don't know.
And he's Jewish.
But that was really what?
And it's great. And then the mothers say, and he's Jewish.
Right, exactly.
Make it even better.
So that was a really interesting experience because I was living with a white Zimbabwean Jewish family that were affluent, yet I was playing in the traditional Zimbabwean league and working out and hanging out with the locals, and which was in an area that wasn't as affluent, obviously, as the Jewish area. So I got in a really interesting experience over there. To experience kind of that whole movement. I mean, I was one of 2 white people on the team and on the entire league. I'd walk into those stadiums and there's literally 3 or 4 white people, no Jews. They've basically never met a Jewish person before. I was an alien to them. So it was really interesting.
And are you going back these days?
I haven't been going back to Zimbabwe that much, but since we're in all these countries, I kind of, whenever I can get back to Africa, I'll go back. And, to be honest, I have time, I don't know if you have time, but there's a really interesting experience I had on Survivor Africa, which is the first time I played, where I never really thought my religion would come into play, but it did. So you're allowed to bring 2 T-shirts, and one of my T-shirts was my Maccabee USA T-shirt. That's what I wore. That's what I chose as my T-shirt to wear on, national television in front of 32 million people per week back in the day. And so I got on this show. I'm wearing this shirt, and they put me in a tribe with this guy named Big Tom Buchanan. He's from Saltville, Virginia. He'd never met a Jewish person before. And I had never met anyone who's never met a Jewish person before. And so here we are in this tribe together, and Tom was definitely treating me differently than kind of the other players on Survivor. And, you know, it kind of pissed me off. And there's this one challenge where we pooled our money together and we bid on a mystery plate of food. And the host of the show, Jeff Probst, unveils this mystery plate of food. And it's ham, it's bacon, and then it was like pancakes and eggs. But Tom jumps up out of it. He's like, he's a Jew boy. He won't eat the ham. He's a Jew boy. And so, like, this was a really, you know, interesting situation because it kind of pissed me off. And I could have tried to vote Tom off because that would be like the easy thing to do. But I realized that I needed Tom to get further in the game together. So all of a sudden I had to figure out, how can I work with this guy that's clearly prejudiced towards Jewish people and make this into like a positive situation. So, you know, I ended up, I mean, I'm a quote guy, so I remember that quote, like, I do not like that man, therefore I must get to know him better. It's by Abraham Lincoln. So I realized once I took the time to get to know him, to educate him, to teach him about the foods we eat, the holidays we celebrate, the rules of our culture. And so it kind of broke down that barrier, and it gave a bridge to understanding and empathy, and we ended up going to the end of the game together. And Tom is still one of my close friends today.
Really?
So I think, yeah. So like you know, you don't expect to have these moments in the construct of a crazy game like Survivor, but it was real and it happened. And like, some people criticized me for the way I acted. Other people celebrated the way I acted because I just kind of laughed it off at the moment. But behind the scenes, I was working hard to get Tom to like really kind of, you know, connect with me. And I think about myself, I never took the time to get to know him. Like, I would have missed out of having a good friend for the past 20 years. So it's really interesting how the game interacts with your real life.
Well, this might be somewhat of a heavy question, but do you think that story was well represented on TV?
I think it was a different time. I don't think that would ever fly in today's game. Or if it did, it would have been made it would have been more of a public issue, I think. Did they do a good job? They did a good job showing the kind of the cutesy, humorous part of that versus like the weighty, like really what was going on here. Like, is he prejudiced? Does he just not know? It wasn't coming out of a place of hatred and malice. It was just kind of coming from a place of not knowing. Like, he'd never met anyone like me before. He had only read and heard rumors about what Jewish people are like. He comes from a town where there's 24 people. You know, I couldn't fault him for that, but I could educate him on me and us and our tribe.
I mean, that's a really powerful message. I mean, unfortunately, very relevant today, but can continue to.
Correct. Yeah, and I do a lot of like speaking to young Jewish groups. Like, I'm going to Michigan to go to BBYO on Friday, and that's part of my whole story is like, because I'm sure in today's day, and there's an increase in just, I think, negative association with Jews and Jewish people, and people may not be as excited to not say advertise their religion, but just might be shy or embarrassed or ashamed or afraid of the consequences of letting people know they're Jewish. So I feel like to be a positive role model in the Jewish community is important to me, and just to send the message that, listen, like, you know, if someone's not liking you, you know, take the time to get to know them a little bit better, and then maybe you can find a bridge to understanding and at least understand where each person came from and how you may be able to work together in a way, if you have to, in a work environment, sport environment, anything.
So believe it or not, we actually have a lot of non-Jewish listeners of this show who reach out to us and talk about all these sort of interesting things they're learning about Judaism and Jewish people and sort of a culture they weren't necessarily exposed to so much. And that's really a lot of what we're trying to do, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that belief.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the game Survivor itself, I mean, let's be honest, it was being Jewish that helped me win. I mean, fasting's not really a problem. I do that once a year anyway, right? You know, like eating nasty foods. You know, I've had to gefilte fish jelly and borscht and chopped liver, and like I had already endured the most grueling test of strength and perseverance known to man, my bris.
Right.
So
there you go.
I'm already a survivor.
Absolutely. And you studied for your bar mitzvah, so you know how to learn new languages and work in front of a crowd.
Exactly. Yeah, I could work a crowd because of my bar mitzvah.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you very much for coming on. We'd love to have you back on sometime. If you're ever in Canada, please come say hi. I don't know what work ever brings you to Toronto, but love to do this in person or take some pictures together.
Yeah, I'm good buddies with the do you know the House in Toronto?
Yeah.
It's kind of a Jewish organization. I spoke there a couple of years ago at a thing called JetX, which is like the Jewish TEDx. But yeah, I might be heading back up to Toronto probably around July 4th, 5th-ish time. So I might be up there that time.
Ken, Ethan, really appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of really fascinating stories and really powerful experience you've had. And we didn't talk very much about your battle with cancer, but we'd love to another time and hear more about that. But this was extremely enlightening and absolutely fascinating. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me. And, I love the concept of Menschwarmers. Keep me in the loop.
Well, thank you so much to Ethan Zohn for that lively and exciting conversation. I was really kind of blown away, Alex, by that Larry David anecdote. The fact that multiple people read for the part of...
Yeah, it was of the survivor.
Of fake
the non-survivor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's really terrific. But I understand why having a Jewish guy would be less fun.
Oh, the scene would have read totally differently. Because either he's totally oblivious, which is just like a bad look for a nice Jewish boy.
Yeah.
Or he's not, and there's no way that goes well.
Which would also be really bad.
Yeah.
So, good for him. Thank you so much for being on the show again.
Yep,
and,
much appreciated.
We'd love to have you again anytime, Ethan. Alex, I think you wanted to sort of share a bit of an anecdote, something that was notable to you in the world of Jewish sports.
Oh, yeah.
Now that you're on the guest here, I'm giving you the floor.
Our regular listeners might remember an episode we did a while back about non-Jewish athletes with curious relationships to Judaism. So, for example, Antonio Brown has a synagogue in his house. He said that's where his Jewish friends bless up. And I think we're never going to forget. That was like the highlight of the episode.
Yep.
And I think A-Rod did Kabbalah from when he was dating Madonna, stuff like that. But some of you may have heard there's a wide receiver who's going to be taken pretty early in the upcoming NFL draft from Alabama Crimson Tide. His name is Jerry Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy!
And he wears an enormous Magen David necklace, a Star of David necklace, because I guess his name's like Jerry the Jew.
So he was asked, are you Jewish? Is that why, you wear this?
Yeah.
And he said, no, I'm not Jewish, but it's my name, so Jew has just been my nickname forever, so I'm choosing to embrace it. And I think it's our duty as the Menschwarmers and you Jewish sports fans out there in radio land to embrace him as well. And the same way we're embracing Tommy Jew of the St. Louis Cardinals, Jerry Jeudy of the whatever team he gets drafted, formerly Alabama Crimson Tide. Maybe the both of them can come on our show together sometime.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something?
Jerry Jeudy and...
what if he ends up on St. Louis's football team?
Yikes. But maybe Jerry Jeudy and Tommy Jew would like to have this conversation with us sometime about life being named Jew.
Open invite.
Open invite to both of them. Absolutely. Jerry Jeudy, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people were saying, like, should we be offended about this? And
no, I think he's embracing it. I think we got to embrace it. He likes it. He knows that it's a Jewish symbol.
Yeah.
And he wants...
He seems to be proud of it.
Absolutely.
It's like the Ajax fans... or the Tottenham fans who are just huge Zionists.
Yes, exactly. Maybe not the ones who chant Yid at each other, but the ones who love Israel. Yeah, sure. What the hell? Let's do it. We'll welcome him. So thanks, Jerry Jeudy, for being part of the tribe.
And thanks for giving us another athlete to talk about when it's football season.
Absolutely. There's
Other than Julian Edelman.
Julian Edelman.
You can tell.
It counts. Julian Edelman, who our producer tells us is awaiting his bar mitzvah.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening.
Oh, good for him.
I guess he's embracing it too.
I remember learning. I hope it's not one of those BS synagogues where the rabbi reads the parsha and then the kid.
Is that a thing?
That's
Does
a
that
thing.
happen?
And the kid just sort of explains it.
Ethan Zohn didn't have a bar mitzvah like that.
No, I think Ethan Zohn had a real serious bar mitzvah. Maybe at Burning Man. Maybe he every time he goes to Burning Man is sort of a re-bar mitzvah, but amongst the
is
freaks
Burning Man
weirder.
Just like a bar
society.
mitzvah party for adults?
I think it's a Purim party for adults. We've already agreed, but it could be a bar mitzvah. I bet you at any given Burning Man, there's somebody out there bar mitzvahing people.
Yeah.
Like you want to have a Burning Man bar mitzvah, you become the man who burns.
That would make a lot of sense. I'm looking up Julian Edelman. He says he's studying for it, so hopefully that means he's actually going to be reading.
Yep. Hopefully he's really really doing the Hebrew and not just sort of the bit.
Sorry, did you know he's written a children's book that references modern-day Zionism founder Theodor Herzl?
No. What's the book called?
I don't know. He went on a birth trial. Okay.
He's a football player, so you can say he really puts the hurt back in Herzl.
That's a good one. I'm going to look this up. He's really we knew he was buying into his Judaism because his mother's not Jewish, but his father is, so he wasn't necessarily raised Jewish. But I wonder, maybe it's living in Boston, Robert Kraft, maybe Nate Ebner's been.
I think it's a combination of Mr. Kraft, Nate
and also
Ebner.
Getting notoriety for it from the Jewish community.
Absolutely, he wears an Israel pin at games, as does Ebner. So it's sort of a happy snowball effect of all those. It's another light. The Shamash of Judaism is lighting another
Flying
NFL player. Flying high. Now, there's also Mitchell Schwartz of the Kansas City Chiefs, recent Super Bowl champion. Congratulations again to him. But Jerry Judy, you're in good company. We'd love to have you on and talk about it. Maybe hear the whole story one day. After you get drafted, if you're on the media tour, we're calling.
Yeah.
Well, that should just about do it for the Menschwarmers on this 13th of Adar. Happy Purim once again. We are the Menschwarmers, the Jews in Sports and Shtisel Recap Podcast. We appreciate you coming on. Or Megillah Recap Podcast this week.
Just this week, yeah. Make sure you got your Gregors out. You can find us on Twitter at Menschwarmers. You can also follow the CJN Podcast Network wherever you get your social media. And, of course, wherever you get your podcast. Follow the Menschwarmers, like us, rate us 5 stars, leave us a message, a rating, a review. We want people to know about us. We want other people to enjoy this episode and the show as much as I'm sure you have.
And spread the message of Ethan's charity and his battle with cancer and all of those good things too. He was such a mensch.
Yeah, no.
He's a real mensch.
I knew even before you said it. Yeah. I'm the title of this episode is going to be Ethan Zohn, a.k.a. that Jewish guy from Survivor. Is putting the Mensch in Mensch.
Putting the Mensch, yeah. This episode really titled itself. Yeah. Absolutely. And thanks again to Alex for sitting in for this episode.
It's fun to be on the other side of the recorder. I will say, because I usually produce this show and sit here and listen to you guys, time flies a lot faster when you're hosting than when you're producing. Who would have guessed?
Yeah, we really zip through these bits. But I really appreciate you being on here, Alex. Our comedy just goes like that. You ever sat through a Jerry Seinfeld set? It takes like 5 minutes, but you're done for an hour.
I wrote about a Jerry Seinfeld set when he opened the UJA AGM.
So, really? He opened the wow.
Yeah, what was his a year and a half ago. It was just his new special, I think.
Okay.
It was funny. I don't know. One of the I remember one of them was that
does he get offered to do that gig every single year?
Seth Meyers was supposed to do it, but then he pulled out for Sebastian Maniscalco. James Corden did it a few years ago.
But they're not Jewish.
No, but Sebastian Maniscalco, I think his wife is Jewish, so he has a bit about Jewish food. And...
my mom asked me about him yesterday, just if I found him funny.
Do you?
No.
I don't know so much about him.
So Seinfeld, let's hear the Seinfeld and the golf.
I don't remember much more. It just said golf. He's like, I figured it out. Golf, it's an acronym. It stands for get out, leave forever.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
He has an older bit about golf, which my wife-to-be really jokes about all the time, which is that watching golf on TV, if you were to describe it as the worst sounding sport, it's just little white ball, big green field, little white sky, big white sky, little white ball, smaller green field. And that's all of golf on
little
TV.
Black hole, yeah.
Yeah, little black hole. That's it. Just a little white ball, big blue sky.
But it does, it's very easy to watch. I find I'm not a big golf fan, but if it's on, you just turn it on. You don't need to know anything about it. It's just the simplest thing to follow.
And the dulcet tones of the commentators' voices. And going to a live golf tournament is like that too. Everybody's whispering, there's the occasional swing. And now we're here on 18, where Alex Rose will bring us home on this podcast.
Thanks for listening, and Purim Sameach.
Once again, to Larry Tannenbaum, if you are listening, we're available for interviews at any time. Have a good night, everyone.